that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Ruth Hamilton. It's Tuesday, 12th day of September, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Senator Robin Hood Padilla calls for constitutional change on SMNI's pilot episode of 3 p.m. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Pilipinas Muna, with host Peter Flores Serrano. Storm Daniel lashes out in Libya, leaving 3,000 dead and 10,000 missing. North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and Russian President Vladimir Putin met in Russia following Kim's arrival via armored train. Syria is demanding compensation from the U.S. government, accusing it of plundering its wealth and resources, including oil. And Chile marks 50 years since the brutal U.S.-backed coup of dictator Augusto Pinochet. This and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. As many as 3,000 people are estimated dead and thousands more are missing after Storm Daniel devastated eastern Libya, with the city of Derna witnessing the worst of it after 2 dams collapsed. According to Red Cross, 10 people are missing, while Libyan authorities have estimated that Storm Daniel that triggered flash floods may have killed as many as 2,000 people in Derna city alone. Derna is a city formerly held by Islamic extremists for more than a decade, and their stronghold resulted in inadequate and crumbling infrastructure. Meanwhile, Storm Daniel continued onward on Egypt, although the impact appeared to be less severe in the said country. Still, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi ordered the Egyptian armed forces to send immediate assistance and humanitarian aid by air and sea to Libya and Morocco, where a powerful earthquake left thousands dead. Meanwhile, the death toll from the powerful earthquake that struck Morocco last week is nearing 3,000, as said by the Moroccan Interior Ministry. Carlo de la Peña tells us more.
Rescuers and medics continue to look for more earthquake victims as hopes fade, finding them alive under the rubble. The number of deaths is nearing 3,000, with over 2,501 people injured. The epicenter of the earthquake was near the town of Ighil in El Haus province, located some 70 kilometers southwest of the old city of Marrakesh. Meanwhile, Amizmiz, a tourist town approximately 55 kilometers south of Marrakesh, is among the areas heavily affected by the powerful earthquake. The buildings are reportedly on the verge of collapse. A once 3-floor house has been reduced to a single floor as the upper 2 floors collapsed after the strong jolt. Displaced residents had no other choice but to seek shelter with relatives and friends in another city.
My family is from here, in this home. Yeah. Actually, this is big phenomenon. There's a lot of people who died. This is actually a...
Relief efforts and rescue operations continue in the quake-stricken areas, including Amizmiz and Marrakesh. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Oil company executives will be summoned to Congress due to a series of oil price increases. MJ Mondeja reports.
The continuous surge in petroleum product prices prompted House Speaker Martin Romualdez to summon officials of oil companies to alleviate the hardship of Filipinos. According to Speaker Romualdez, the Congress will seek solutions to the increasing oil prices, especially since that the government's hands are tied to the oil deregulation law. Although oil prices in the Philippines depend on the global market, Romualdez pointed out that companies are still selling supplies bought at lower prices before the costs of crude oil in the world market increased. The Congress intends to find out what actions oil companies can take to help ease the burden of Filipinos and will also scrutinize pending proposals aimed at amending the oil deregulation law to determine possible measures to lower the price of petroleum products. For PDP Laban President and Palawan Representative Jose Alvarez, summoning the companies is a good gesture, especially since the issues concerning oil and rice supplies differ.
Ngunit yung langis, dahil yung kadahilan yun sa gira sa Russia and yung Ukraine. So kung tanggalin mo yung gira ng Russia at saka Ukraine, babalik sa normal yung presyo. Unless na lang meron yung cartel talaga, pigain nila ang presyo. Yung Saudi Arabia maglilid ng cartel, gusto nilang tumaas ang presyo, pwede nilang pataasin. But not like this now. So yung move na speaker na kausapin kung anong maitulong nila, maganda yun.
Meanwhile, the schedule for summoning the oil industry players is still being finalized.
It could be next week that the oil industry players will be summoned here at the House of Representatives. For God of Beloved Philippines, I'm Jay Mondiha, SMNI News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong Un has arrived in Russia for his planned meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin following days of speculation that Kim would visit Russia using a heavily armored train. Kim Sang reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong Un's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin is on the go, as said by the South Korean Defense Ministry. Meanwhile, the Kremlin confirmed that Kim has arrived in Russia using an armored train. The Kremlin confirmed Putin invited Kim to visit Russia, with Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov saying that the negotiations would be held both with Russian and North Korean delegations present and in a one-on-one format. An official banquet will also be held in honor of Kim, but no press conferences are planned. Peskov did not specify where in the Far East the talks between Putin and Kim would take place. It can be noted that Putin arrived in the eastern port city of Vladivostok, Russia, to attend the Eastern Economic Forum that was held at the same time. Vladivostok City is also where Putin and Kim held their first meeting in 2019. Meanwhile, the armored train used by Kim was also seen near the North Korea-Russia border, and the speculation that the Pyongyang leader was boarding it has been confirmed following his arrival. Meanwhile, various media reports say that Kim wanted to talk about further military cooperation with Putin. Solely Sobugo Kim Sang Imnida, SMNI News, South Korea.
Chinese envoy criticized Japan's actions, saying that it unilaterally launched the discharge of nuclear-contaminated water from the crippled Fukushima power plant into the Pacific Ocean. The envoy also urged Japan to accept strict international supervision regarding the discharge. Ria Saito reports.
At the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors meeting held yesterday in Vienna, the capital of Austria, Li Song, China's permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Vienna, says the disposal of nuclear-contaminated water into the ocean has become a major issue concerning the global marine environment and public health, and it is not a domestic affair of Japan. According to Lee, the Fukushima nuclear accident that happened 12 years ago caused a serious disaster in Japan, but the country has the responsibility and obligation to dispose of nuclear-contaminated water in the most responsible, safe, and careful way to avoid causing secondary damage to the marine environment and humanity, adding that disposing of it at the sea is not the only option nor the most responsible. Lee also emphasized that Japan has not asked the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency or IAEA, to execute comprehensive disposal options other than dumping it into the sea, which has rejected. He said the IAEA statement cannot serve a pass for Japan and just dump nuclear-contaminated water into the ocean. The Chinese envoy said the IAEA report cannot serve as a pass for Japan to go through with the discharge. He underscored the importance for the IAEA to establish a long-term and effective international monitoring mechanism no longer controlled by Japan. Lee urged TEPCO and the Japanese government to address the serious concerns of the international community. Member states and the Board of Governors should also play a principal role in establishing relevant international monitoring mechanisms and carry out regular reviews of the issues and the mechanism itself. Ijo, Nihon Karasai News Tatsutashimashita, SMNI in Japan.
Prior to the meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and Russian President Vladimir Putin, the latter spoke at a plenary session wherein he criticized Western nations for destroying the global economy by disrupting financial and trade relations. Jean Domingo has the details.
Russian President Vladimir Putin voiced his concerns about Western countries damaging the global economic system they played a role in creating. He expressed these worries during a speech at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. President Putin stated that some Western nations are causing harm to the international economy by disrupting financial, trade, and economic relationships. However, Putin also pointed out that many countries around the world are committed to working together for the benefit of all people, not just the wealthy few. These nations prioritize their own projects and aim to bring long-term benefits to their populations. According to President Putin, this approach is leading to the emergence of a new international model that is more inclusive and less focused on Western standards. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also highlighted the growing influence of groups like the BRICS economic bloc and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as more countries seek alternatives to Western-dominated international institutions. Lavrov argued that many nations feel the need to bypass these Western institutions due to grievances and sanctions imposed by the U.S. and European unions. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SMNI News.
A high-ranking PDP Laban Party official has something to say regarding those who are encouraging former President Rodrigo Duterte to re-enter the political arena. MJ Mundejar reports.
Photos showing what appears to be a meeting of several former high-ranking government officials resurfaced, and among them were former Presidents Gloria Arroyo and Rodrigo Duterte and former Senate President Tito Soto III. But according to Senator Bongo, who was also present at the gathering, it was only a simple get-together wherein they also reminisced about their experiences in public service. However, some of Senator Go's statements added a bit of intrigue to the gathering. During that occasion, Go claimed that Arroyo was trying to convince Duterte to become politically active again, and this was later confirmed by Arroyo herself in a statement to the House media. Although Duterte currently serves as the chairman of the Partido PDP Laban, he had previously talked about no longer engaging in politics. According to the party's president, Palawan Representative Jose Chavez Alvarez, it would greatly benefit the re-election of senators of the party if former President Duterte re-enters the political arena.
Maganda yan sa tatlong re-election na senator ng PDP dahil kung siya ang magkakampanya, yung kanyang popularity will transcend to the re-electionist.
As for the question of whether the party had discussed Duterte's potential candidacy in the 2025 midterm elections, the PDP reportedly hasn't addressed this matter yet. Although there have been speculations that the former president might run for senator in 2025.
Wala kami pinag-usapan na ganyan. Ngunit talaga pasyan niya lang yan. Kasi siyempre yung ibang malapit sa kanya nagsabi na rin na kung maaari, wag na siya dahil galing na nga siya sa pagkapangulo. Ngunit pinakamagandang example, si dating Pangulong Gloria Arroyo, very active ngayon. Di ba? Kita mo naman. Palagi nag-attend pa nga ng session dito eh. Maybe yung mga suggestion ni dating Pangulong Gloria Arroyo is towards him running the campaign. Kasi may hatak nga siya eh.
Senators Bongo, Bato de la Rosa, and Francis Tolentino are the re-electionists of PDP Laban in the coming 2025 midterm elections. For Ganamable of Philippines, I'm Jem Ondeha, SMNI News.
Syria has accused Washington of illegally plundering its wealth and strategic resources in a letter to the UN demanding compensation from the U.S. Andrea Santos reports.
Syria has told the United Nations that the United States should pay for taking their oil and breaking international laws, and that the U.S. has troops in their country without permission and is taking their natural resources like oil and gas. Syria's state media agency SANA published an article citing a letter sent by Syria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as well as Albania, which holds the UN Security Council presidency in September. The letter reportedly mentioned that Syrian diplomats urged the UN to put an end to violations of international law and the UN Charter by the U.S. for illegally stationing troops in the northeast and southeast of Syria. The Syrian ministry claimed that the U.S. and some groups are harming their country by taking valuable resources. They say this has cost them about $115.2 billion from 2011 to 2023. The letter concluded by Syria demanding American leaders be held responsible for thefts and that the U.S. administration be forced to compensate for them. The Foreign Ministry also wants the U.S. military to leave Syria and give control of the oil and gas back to the Syrian government. General Mark Milley, who leads the U.S. military, said recently that they will stay in the Middle East, including Syria. He said the U.S. is worried about groups like ISIS and wants to protect their interests, including oil. The conflict in Syria started in 2011 when some opposition groups protested against their president Bashar Assad. In 2015, Russia joined the fight against the Islamic State, or IS, formerly known as ISIS. The U.S. military started fighting IS a year before, but without Syria's invitation. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson criticized the presence of the United States military in the Middle East and urged them to move out of the continent as soon as possible. Daniela Paulite has the details.
The military presence of the United States in the Middle East is damaging the peace and stability in the region. This is what Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani said at a press conference recently held in Tehran. According to the spokesman, interference by external forces, especially the United States in the Middle East, is not conducive to regional deployment. He also stressed that regional security should be jointly maintained by countries in the region, as the United States is only serving its own interest. He then called on the U.S. military to withdraw its troops from the Middle East as soon as possible.
نیروهای نظامی امریکا در منطقه هیچگاه به دنبال تامین ثبات و امنیت نبودند و در هر منطقه‌ای هم که حضور پیدا کردند، در هر کشوری که حضور پیدا کردند، نه تنها کمکی به تحکیم صلح و ثبات نشد، بلکه زمینه ساز ایجاد بی‌ثباتی و ناامنی در اون کشور و در اون منطقه شد. بنابراین
Asked about the late progress regarding the resumption of the implementation of the Iran nuclear deal, Kanani said the road to negotiations is not close and Iran will continue to seek the lifting of illegal sanctions imposed by the United States. He also said that the U.S. imposed such illegal sanctions to safeguard its national interest. The nuclear deal refers to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. This deal was signed with world powers in July 2015. The deal aims to put some restrictions on its nuclear program in return for the removal of sanctions imposed against Iran. However, the U.S. pulled out of the nuclear deal in May 2018 and reimposed sanctions on Iran, which prompted it to drop some of its nuclear commitments under the JCPOA. Talks about reviving the nuclear deal resumed in April 2021 in Vienna, Austria, together with the representatives of Iran, China, France, Germany, Russia, and the United Kingdom. At that time, messages were related to American representatives because Iran reportedly refused to hold direct talks since the U.S. is no longer a member. However, no significant breakthrough has been achieved since the end of the last round of talks in August 2022. This has been Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, the newly appointed Prime Minister of Cambodia will visit China this week as the Southeast Asian country takes further steps to build stronger ties with the economic powerhouse. Chatmongkon Pisamay Guson reports.
Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping during his two-day official visit to China. Hun Manet will pay an official visit to China from September 14 to 16, as confirmed by the Chinese Foreign Ministry. The Cambodian Prime Minister visited China at the invitation of Premier Li Qiang. The 45-year-old four-star general was declared the new Prime Minister of Cambodia in August. Hun Manet replaced his father, the country's longtime leader Hun Sen, after nearly 40 years of serving as Prime Minister. Both countries enjoyed strong bilateral ties for decades under Hun Sen's rule. China is Cambodia's largest ties. Hun Manet is expected to follow in his father's footsteps when it comes to maintaining positive ties with Beijing. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชัดมงคลพิสมัยโกศล SMNI ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
More news when Newsline World returns. In the pilot episode of 3 p.m. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Pilipinas Muna on SMNI News Channel on Monday, host Peter Flores Serrano wasted no time with guest Senator Robin Hood Padilla as the pair dived straight into the hottest issues, including constitutional change and the extension of the Philippine president's term in office. Details of this report from Sara Santos.
Magandang gabi Pilipinas at sa buong mundo. Ako po si Peter Flores Serrano para sa 3 p.m. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Pilipinas Muna. Ang bagong programa ngayon dito sa SMNI na kung saan tatalakayin natin ang mga usaping politika, usaping mamamayan at usaping pangkalahatan. Samahan niyo po ako ngayong gabi para isang usapang makabayan. At syempre, binabati din natin ang isang magandang gabi ang ating pinakamamahal at butihing pastor, Pastor Apollo Sikbuloy. Pastor, maraming salamat po sa pagbibigay ng pagkakataon na maging bahagi ng paglalahad ng katotohanan dito sa SMNI para sa Diyos at sa Pilipinas nating mahal. Please welcome on Pilipinas Muna, Senator Robin Padilla.
Sa Diyos at sa Pilipinas nating mahal.
Yan.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat, sa lahat po ng nanonood. At siyempre po, sa akin pong minamahal, Pastor Apollo Kibuloy. Magandang gabi po.
Senator, let's go down to business. Okay.
SMNI News Channel has a new program that will help people understand timely issues and discussions. This is 3 p.m. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Pilipinas Muna. You can catch the program every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 9 p.m. with host Peter Flores Serrano. Actor turned Senator Robin Hood Padilla was the first guest on the said program's pilot episode on Monday. And no time was wasted as the hot issue of amending the Philippine Constitution was immediately tackled. Senator Padilla stressed that the Philippine Constitution needs to be changed first by adopting a unicameral system.
Unang dapat nating baguhin, inshallah, ipahintulot ng Panginoon, ay maging unicameral na lang tayo. Bumalik tayo sa unicameral. Isang house na lang. Wala nang Senado, wala nang house. Parliamentary form of government. Napakalaking bagay po kasi kung unicameral na lang tayo.
Bakit, Senator?
Sa paggawa lang po ng batas, mabilis na yan.
According to the good senator, the 1987 Constitution is no longer applicable and much financial resources are wasted in the Philippine government's current system, citing the country's process of passing a law. Even if the House and the Senate agree on a proposed bill after having passed 3 readings, the bill can still be vetoed by the President. Senator Padilla also believes that it is timely to extend the President of the Philippines' term in office.
Kapag hindi natin gawan ng paraan yung issue na yan, yung term extension na yan, laging pagbibintangan yung gusto nating palitan ang saligang batas dahil gusto natin magkaroon ng term extension. Kaya dapat, yan ang pag-usapan natin. Ano ba ang masama kung magkaroon ng second term ang Pangulo? Hindi ko maintindihan. Hindi ko maintindihan. Kasi ang 6 na taon, yan ay napaka-iksi sa magaling na presidente. Pero napakahaba para sa nganga.
Okay? We've experienced that and we saw the difference between anganga and a wonderful president.
Ako, bakit hindi na lang natin harapin muna yung term extension at ipaliwanag natin sa lahat na hindi masama yan? Bakit natin ipagpipilitan itong 6 na taon? Nung sa konstitusyon naman, nung 1935, ginawa na nila yan 4 years, ba't hindi natin ibalik doon?
At least 8 years.
At least 8 years.
Yeah.
For Senator Padilla, it is very important for a president to continue what he or she started.
Napakahalaga ng may continuity sa isang presidente. Bakit? Yung 6 years na yan, nagpakahirap ka ng 6 years. Biglang walang continuity, yung papalit na presidente, lahat ng ginawa mo, scrap yan, umpisa tayo uli.
However, according to Senator Padilla, the change that Filipinos dream of can never happen if the same people are elected using the same old constitution.
Opo, tsaka alam mo, pare ko, wala akong Messiah syndrome, gano'n. Yung iniisip ko na ako ang magbabago sa Pilipinas. Hindi po. Ako po, isa lang po ang aking paniwala ko. Ang pagbabago ay mangyayari lamang yan kung kayo ay maghahalal ng bago. Kasi huwag kayong mag-expect ng pagbabago doon sa luma. Ano ngayon? Kahit sa ang logic nating tingnan, hindi mangyayari yung pagbabago kung luma. Kailangan magkaroon tayo ng mga bagong ideas. At ang bagong pinakamagandang ideyang bago ay baguhin natin ang konstitusyon. Dahil kailanman, nagkaroon na po tayo ng pinakamatalinong presidente, pinakamatalinong senador, pinakamatalinong Congress. Kumpara nyo naman, talagang nandun na lahat ng pero bakit nandito tayo?
Bakit ganito pa rin ang kalagayan ng Pilipinas?
Ang problema natin, sistema ng gobyerno. Yun ang problema natin.
Sa gobyerno.
Opo. At mababago natin yan, yung mga nandyan sa gobyerno kung bago yung sistema. Kasi itong sistema na to, perfected na nila kung paano nila paikot-ikutin.
In the end, Senator Padilla has a call to the people.
Itong eleksyon na to, huwag niyo po itong palagpasin dahil wala na pong ibang panahon pa. Hindi po sa 2028, masyado na pong matagal yun. Kailangan itong 2025, magdesisyon na po kayo kung tayo ba ay tatapak na paabante o nakatayo na lang tayo rito o gusto nyo ito, paatras tayo. Nasa inyo po yan.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Sarah Santos, SMNI News.
Chile's President Gabriel Boric marked the 50th anniversary of a military coup which ousted elected President Salvador Allende and brought General Augusto Pinochet to power. Meanwhile, two Chilean congressmen have urged the United States to formally apologize and provide economic reparations for its role in the said coup. Francine Sagarino has the details.
Chilean President Gabriel Boric recently delivered a speech to mark a significant event that happened in Chile 50 years ago, the military coup that changed the country. On September 11, 1973, a group of military officers led by General Augusto Pinochet took over the government, ousting the elected President Salvador Allende. The United States backed the said coup. During a special gathering in Santiago, dignitaries sat inside La Moneda, the presidential palace, while others stood outside with signs and chanted slogans like "The United People will never be defeated." President Boric talked about the importance of remembering those who defended the country's laws and constitution when the coup happened. At that time, the military used planes, tanks, and guns to take control, which was an act of betrayal and rebellion. Boric also mentioned the need to appreciate the help Chile received from other countries during those challenging days. He said that the coup led to serious human rights violation against the people of Chile. The military coup in 1973 marked the start of General Pinochet's 17 rule, during which about 40,000 people were either arrested, tortured, or disappeared. Meanwhile, two Chilean congressmen have urged the United States to formally apologize and provide economic reparations for its role in the said coup. The two lawmakers conveyed their demands by sending a letter to U.S. President Joe Biden that was delivered through the U.S. Embassy in Santiago, Chile. Reporting this has been Francine Sagarino, SMNI News.
Business groups asked the Prime Minister of Australia to take with him a delegation of corporation chiefs when he visits China later this year. Shayna Salim reports.
Australian and Chinese officials are still finalizing the details of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's upcoming trip to China. With the officials still busy finalizing the details of the trip, business leaders have proposed that the Australian leader make the visit a more important one by making Beijing an economic partner. Albanese confirmed he'd accepted Chinese President Xi Jinping's invitation to visit Beijing this year, following a meeting with Chinese President Li Chang on the sidelines of last week's East Asia Summit. It will be the first time an Australian Prime Minister will visit China since Malcolm Turnbull did so in 2016. Australia-China Business Council President David Olsen said he hoped Albanese would take representatives from the business community, noting that it would be a lost opportunity to leave them behind since Canberra's relationship with Beijing is mainly economic. Meanwhile, the chair of the Business Council of Australia's Global Engagement Committee, Warwick Smith, said that businesses had offered to accompany the Australian Prime Minister on his upcoming trip to China. The long-awaited trip could likely take some time between the late October and early December. Sources said that China wants Australia to avoid setting any preconditions on the upcoming trip. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Shina Salim, SMNI News, Australia.
Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates lifted the visa ban on Nigerians with immediate effect as both sides ended months of political deadlock. Gratero Omori has the details.
The President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, secured landmark deals with Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu after ending nearly 1 year of visa ban on Nigerian travelers. Under the historic agreement, Abu Dhabi-based Etihad Airlines and Dubai-based Emirates Airlines will immediately resume flight schedules in and out of Nigeria. Moreover, the investment arms of the government of the United Arab Emirates will invest several billions of US dollars worth of new investments into the Nigerian economy across multiple sectors. The easing of visa restrictions happened after the UAE banned nationals of about 20 African countries from entering its borders on October 18, 2022. Both sides faced a series of diplomatic rows on issues involving flight allocations and travel restrictions, since the UAE imposed the ban until the former president of Nigeria requested for the Gulf nation to end the ban in February of this year. On August 24, Tinubu appealed to resolve its diplomatic tensions with the UAE and described their conflict as a family problem. The Nigerian president has also successfully negotiated a joint foreign exchange liquidity program with the UAE to be announced in detail in the coming weeks. Reporting from Dubai, this has been Gratero Omori, SMNI News, United Arab Emirates.
Meanwhile, Kuwait prepares to send dozens of athletes to the biggest multi-sport international event in China, which boasts of more participants compared to the Olympics. Melchizedek Cadiz reports.
Assalamu alaikum. More than 12,000 athletes from dozens of countries, including Kuwait, will compete in the upcoming Hangzhou Asian Games in China this month. The giant sports festival set to take place in eastern China will start on September 23, 2023 and conclude on October 8, 2023. The Asian Games has recorded more than 12,400 athletes, which means it has more participants compared to about 11,000 participants who joined the Tokyo Olympics 2 years ago. The Kuwaiti delegation will be sending 140 athletes for the Hangzhou Asian Games, consisting of 117 male athletes and 23 female athletes. The delegates will be leaving for China on September 19th. The Games were initially scheduled to occur in 2022, but got postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Asian Games is China's biggest multi-sport international event since its pandemic restrictions ended nearly a year ago. Barakallahu fikum jami'an, kan hada Melchizedek Cadiz sa Akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
And before we end, may be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. The Father Almighty is so good to me, and I praise Him in His goodness. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Ruth Hamilton. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Quibloy, for the opportunity to be a part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible